Seasonal affective disorder is a seasonal episodic depression. And it's one of those things that I think we don't talk about enough because we just think it's kind of ambiently like out there in the world. But if you're someone who's already been diagnosed with it, you're like, yeah, just get on to like telling me what to do. But what if you're somebody who's had this problem for a while? You've had it long enough that you think like, oh, this is just how I am, or you think that everyone is kind of like this. And if you've listened to the show long enough to hear me talk about having Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, I was diagnosed with hypermobility Ehlers-Danlos syndrome back when I was 23 years old. And at that point in my life, I thought everyone's joints hurt all the time and everyone was having a hard time with their day-to-day functioning, right? It had been happening for me my whole life. And I just took it for granted that like, oh, everybody is just constantly coping with agony. Keep it moving. And so I'm going to share not just the definition, but the symptoms and the spectrum of feelings that are attributed to seasonal affective disorder. Because if you're someone that's experiencing these things, I want you to know that there are resources for you. And I also want to throw out this caveat. I am not a therapist. I am not a physician. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a clinician. It's not my job to diagnose medical conditions or give medical advice. So as I'm unpacking this, if it sounds like you and it's a little too close for comfort, the deal is I need you to get some help, right? Go talk to your doctor. Go talk to your therapist to figure out if you need something more aggressive in terms of intervention than what we're going to talk about in today's episode. Because today's episode, we're not going to talk about medical intervention. We're going to talk about lifestyle and how you can use lifestyle to help curb like a little bit of seasonal affective disorder, or you could use it in complement with your medical clinical treatment to make it more effective. That's our deal. Okay? Deal? Keep it moving. Great. So SAD, seasonal affective disorder, is an episodic depression that most often happens in fall or in winter. Now, there is a form of seasonal affective disorder that is spring-summer that instead of being associated with depression is more around anxiety and mania and being like too up, but it's pretty rare and it's probably not what people are dealing with right now. So we're going to focus on seasonal affective disorder fall winter because it's the most common and it's the one that's probably relevant because most of our listeners are in the Northern Hemisphere. And to our Southern Hemisphere listeners, enjoy the onset of summer, my friends. I'm sure it's lovely there. It affects women more commonly than men. And it's also more and more common as you get older. So young men being the least affected population, which is not to say that young men don't get it. It's just the smallest percentage. Older women being the most affected population. And then you get a nice broad smattering and spectrum in between. And of course, there's always outliers, right? Not everything applies to everyone all the time.